Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Hotchkiss. I'm a religious studies major at the University of Oklahoma, and I'm so honored to be presenting this work to you. I began this research not just as a student, but as a wife, a mother, and a Christian woman who has struggled deeply with the pressures we're going to talk about today. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. These lines from the 2023 Barbie capture the suffocating contradictions women face today, especially working mothers who are expected to excel professionally while still carrying the emotional and domestic weight of their families. Despite progress in women's rights and workplace access, the underlying belief that a woman's primary worth is tied to her role as a mother remains deeply embedded in culture, religion, and even scripture. Ancient texts like the Bible continue to shape our definitions of womanhood, often glorifying self sacrificial motherhood while leaving little room for shared labor or personal autonomy. For generations, women have tried to live up to impossible standards, many of which are rooted in religious and cultural traditions that continue to shape our lives today. This paper argues that the Bible plays a powerful role in shaping how motherhood is idealized and internalized in modern society, particularly through its portrayals of women like Hannah, Martha, and the Proverbs 31 women. By comparing these biblical narratives to emotional truths voiced in the Barbie monologue and examining the lived experiences of working mothers today, including my own, I show how cultural and religious expectations continue to pressure women to find their worth in motherhood, while quietly shouldering a double burden of labor, both seen and unseen. The Barbie monologue, though it comes from a fictional character, deeply resonated with modern women who are trying to navigate through a world of judgment and criticism. Gloria, the character who delivers this monologue, explains why women work so hard to be perfect and never feel good enough. The monologue acknowledges things like women's worth being tied to motherhood, the expectation for women to be caretakers, the idea that women should always be grateful for what they have, and that even though we work harder, we are not necessarily praised for it. It is expected that women should be perfect, so we are not given praise when we do well, but we are criticized harshly when we fail to reach that perfection. Barbie is not alone. Looking at novels and films, new and old, can tell us a lot about what society thinks about women. Every year, from October to December, the Hallmark Channel plays Christmas movies that show a hardworking career woman whose life is incomplete according to her parents or friends. She's usually a harsh know it all who does not care about anyone else. In almost all of these movies, she finds a man, leaves her big city career for small town life, and magically becomes a likable, sweeter person who lives happily ever after. The media has been telling women what it means to be a woman and a good mother, what makes women valuable for as long as there has been media. That image has shifted from women who are married and serving the needs of their family to working mothers as supermoms, to the idea that working mothers put their children in danger, constantly changing the criteria for women's worth. According to a study done about the psychological health of women who were unable to reproduce, these women saw themselves as half a woman because of their inability to become a mother biologically. Most of the women in the study were in a relationship and had at least a secondary education. The results of this study showed that most of these women tied motherhood to womanhood, acceptance by others, appreciation, and personal fulfillment. These societal expectations extend beyond fictional portrayals and affect real women in public life. Former Vice President Kamala Harris is a prime example of a woman who has worked hard in her life to achieve great things, but is considered unworthy by some due to her lack of biological children. During an interview in 2021, J.D. Vance told Tucker Carlson that the United States was being run by Democrats, corporate oligarchs, and a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. Vance includes Harris in this group of childless cat ladies, even though she has been the stepmother to two children and helped raise them. Despite Harris's many qualifications in the legal and political fields, her opponent criticized her for not being a mother and even referred to her as a man. Harris's experience reveals how the worth of a woman is still measured by her motherhood, regardless of her accomplishments. This tension between career success and maternal expectations mirror ancient narratives too. In the Bible, Hannah's worth in her community was tied to her ability to bear children. She pled with God for a child, praying so fervently that the priest Eli thought that she was drunk. She was mocked by her husband's other wife, who had children, and taunted Hannah for her barrenness. When Hannah was finally blessed with a son, Samuel, she dedicated him to the Lord, fulfilling a vow to give him back to God. Hannah's story shows how deeply the expectation of motherhood is woven into perceptions of a woman's identity and worth. Her pain, perseverance, and eventual validation through childbirth parallel modern pressures placed on women to prove their value through motherhood. Hannah's anguish over infertility and her relief through motherhood reflect the ancient roots of the same pressures women feel today. In modern society, this expectation takes on new forms, especially for working mothers who are pulled between conflicting roles both at home and at work. Women who make the decision to put off or pause their career for the sake of staying home with their children are often seen as bowing to the patriarchy, wasting their talents, being lazy, or less successful than women who have successful careers. This leads many women, especially mothers, into what sociologists call the second shift, where they're expected to excel at both work and home without adequate support or recognition. Even though many families now rely on dual incomes, the distribution of household labor remains deeply unequal. Studies show that women still do the majority of the housework and childcare, even when both partners work full time. In addition to physical tasks, women often carry the weight of emotional labor, such as remembering birthdays, managing schedules, checking in on relatives, and soothing hurt feelings. This kind of labor is largely invisible, but its absence is immediately noticed. Women are rarely praised for doing it well, but are often judged harshly when they fall short. After finishing their paid jobs, employed women often face a second shift at home, which involves unpaid work like cleaning, cooking, and caring for family, as described by sociologist Arlie Hochschild. Cultural expectations of emotional labor are not confined to real life. They are embodied in media portrayals as well. Some participants in a study about the effects of media on mothers' self image consistently used the word perfect when talking about women in both media and social media, saying the pressure to live up to that perfection was extreme. This struggle is not new. In the Gospel of Luke, the story of Martha and Mary captures a similar tension. While Martha is busy with the tasks of hospitality, her sister sits at Jesus' feet listening to him. Martha becomes frustrated and asks Jesus to tell Mary to help her, but Jesus gently tells Martha that Mary has chosen what is better. While this passage has often been interpreted as a spiritual lesson about priorities, it also reveals the burden placed on women to serve others, often without appreciation. Martha's stress and resentment mirror what many modern women feel when they are expected to handle everything quietly and with grace, without complaint. Like Mary, those who step back from domestic expectations to pursue other forms of fulfillment, such as education, rest, or spirituality, may be misunderstood or criticized. The story of Martha is a reminder that the expectation for women to do everything is not just modern, it is ancient. The tension of trying to do everything is captured in the Barbie monologue that has resonated with so many modern women. Her story echoes the line from Barbie that you have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people, making ancient scripture and modern media part of the same conversation. They are expected to do it all, to do it perfectly, and to never ask for help or recognition. It's no wonder that so many women feel exhausted and unseen. This burden is not just about doing more, it is about doing everything perfectly. Even when women manage to work full time jobs and care for their families, they're told they're still not enough. The standards keep shifting, and perfection is always out of reach. This leads to a third issue: the cultural obsession with the ideal woman, one who is beautiful, productive, nurturing, ambitious, humble, and entirely self sacrificing. One study notes that women are more prone to perfectionist tendencies than men because they feel pressure to disprove negative stereotypes. The research also warns that women who try to keep up with the impossible standards of perfectionism in both work and home life suffer from emotional exhaustion, depression, burnout, and the constant feeling of not being good enough. Another study published in Frontiers in Psychology further confirms this, showing that women who feel societal pressure to be perfect mothers are more likely to experience parental burnout and even reduce their career ambitions as a result. The study found that women internalize cultural expectations, such as always being nurturing, competent, and self sacrificing, which creates stress, undermines well being, and limits personal and professional growth. We see this ideal echoed in the Proverbs 31 woman. The woman is described a little differently in each translation of the Bible: capable wife, virtuous wife, wife of noble character, strong woman, and worthy woman are just a few of the translations. All of the translations, though, posit that this type of woman is what a man should look for, even though she is hard to find. The description of this perfect woman says that she wakes up early, manages the household, supports and raises her children, runs a business, and somehow does it all with grace. While her character is meant to be a celebration of wisdom and diligence, modern interpretations often turn her into a measuring stick that women are expected to live up to. Some may argue that the biblical ideal of women, particularly Proverbs 31, is meant to be empowering rather than burdensome, celebrating women's strength, wisdom, and industriousness. In this view, the virtuous woman is not a critique but an aspirational figure. However, the overwhelming number of blogs, devotionals, and sermons devoted to explaining that Proverbs 31 should not be taken prescriptively suggests that many women do interpret it as a rigid mold. This repeated clarification points to a widespread tendency to internalize it as a standard, which creates pressure to live up to an impossible ideal. These stories and ideals, biblical, cultural, and social, are not abstract for me. They've shaped my life in tangible ways. Like many women, I have tried to live up to all of them at once. As a wife, mother, daughter, sister, friend, student, and employee, I constantly feel the need to excel in every role all at once. The pressure to be exceptional rather than just good enough has led to periods of deep anxiety, depression, and burnout. I find myself pushing through health issues and emotional problems, hiding those weaknesses because allowing myself to rest would somehow make me less valuable. I have also chosen to pursue a career in a male dominated field, which makes me feel like I need to work harder, be better, and never show weakness in order to succeed. When I work on schoolwork at home, I feel guilty and selfish for not spending that time with my kids and husband. But when I do not earn perfect grades, I feel like a complete failure. I always feel like my whole life is under a microscope and that I'm constantly being judged for the way that I live. One specific example of this was when my son was in the hospital. He wanted me there with him every minute, but I also had schoolwork to do. I sat in his hospital room with him for days, talking to him when he was awake and working on writing essays while he was asleep. I didn't leave for food or to shower because he only wanted me there. The whole time, I also felt guilty that I was not being a good mother to my daughter, even though she was with her dad or her friends. My son was 19 years old, not a young child, but I still feel guilty about his accident because I was in class instead of with him when it happened. That kind of guilt does not go away, and it made me feel like I was failing, even while I was doing everything I possibly could. Despite being thousands of years old, the Bible still continues to shape how women see themselves and how society sees them. The stories of Hannah, Martha, and the Proverbs 31 woman reveal deep cultural and religious expectations about motherhood, service, and perfection that still echo today. Though society has changed in many ways, the pressures remain painfully consistent. Women are still expected to carry the emotional, domestic, and professional burdens without complaint or recognition. Gloria's monologue in Barbie names these contradictions with striking accuracy. Women are told to be everything, and do it all perfectly, yet still be humble, grateful, and quiet about their exhaustion. That this monologue resonates so widely with women today speaks to that persistence of their pressures. These same pressures of perfection, invisibility, and emotional labor were faced by the women in the scripture as well. The women studied in this paper were not just religious figures or women of faith, they were women who struggled with pain, identity, and purpose. Their stories are still relevant because they reflect the same types of burdens that modern women face: to be nurturing but not overbearing, accomplished but not arrogant, devoted but not self erasing. As long as scripture is used to define what a good woman should be, these ancient narratives will continue to influence how women live, work, and mother today. Studying how these women struggled to deal with perfection gives us the opportunity to reframe these texts. Rather than using them as a template for perfection, we can see them as testimonies of women who lived under pressure, made difficult choices, and tried to find dignity in systems that rarely gave it. It also gives modern women permission to release the guilt of not measuring up to idealized standards and instead focusing on building identities in agency, fairness, and truth. The Bible is relevant not because it offers clear answers, but because it asks hard questions that women are still trying to answer. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I want to thank Dr. Barbara Boyd and the Religious Studies Department at the University of Oklahoma for supporting my research on this topic. And I especially want to thank my husband and my children for supporting me throughout this research and giving me encouragement.